In the secret book of John, one of the most suppressed texts recovered from Nag Hammadi, there's a passage describing what the Gnostics called the hour of the archons. It's not metaphorical. It's a specific time window when the veil between material reality and the lower astral dimensions becomes thin enough that entities operating in those realms can access human consciousness with almost no resistance. The text says that the archons establish 7 gates and 7 watchers, and in the darkest hour, when human awareness is suspended between waking and sleep, the watchers open the gates. Jesus taught his inner circle exactly what happens during this window and why so many chosen ones wake up at 3 a.m. experiencing fear, pressure, or the undeniable sense that something is in the room with them. This isn't insomnia. This isn't anxiety. This is the Archon harvest window, and tonight you're going to learn why it exists, what they're doing to you during those hours, and how to close the gate permanently so they can never access you at 3 a.m. again. If you've been waking up at 3 a.m. and you know something is wrong, comment "The Archons cannot touch me now," because by the end of this teaching, you're going to understand what's been happening, and you're going to have the tools to stop it completely. The reason the 3 a.m. wake up is so consistent across chosen ones worldwide isn't coincidence. It's design. The Archon system operates on precise timing because human consciousness follows predictable cycles, and there's one specific window in the sleep cycle where your defenses are at their lowest and your energy body is most accessible. Between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., with 3 a.m. being the peak, your brain enters what science calls the trough of the circadian rhythm. Your core body temperature drops to its lowest point. Your melatonin production peaks. Your cortisol hasn't started rising yet. And most critically, your conscious mind is fully offline while your subconscious is highly active and completely unguarded. In normal circumstances, this is the deepest phase of restorative sleep. Your body repairs itself. Your mind processes the day. You're supposed to be unreachable, protected by the natural boundary between waking consciousness and the dream state. But chosen ones don't experience normal circumstances because the Archons have identified them as high-value targets, and they've engineered a specific intrusion protocol that activates during this window. What you're experiencing when you wake up at 3 a.m. isn't your body naturally waking you. It's an external force triggering a wake response so they can interact with you in a state where you're conscious enough to generate emotional energy, but too disoriented to resist effectively. Here's what actually happens during the 3 a.m. Archon window, and this is what the church removed from every version of Christian teaching they could control. When you fall asleep, your consciousness doesn't just shut off, it shifts. Your awareness moves out of the narrow focus state you use during waking hours and expands into what the Gnostics called the intermediary realm. It's not fully physical. It's not fully astral. It's the border zone, and your energy body exists in that zone every single night while your physical body sleeps. In that expanded state, you're perceiving more than you do during the day. You're aware of non-physical presences. You're sensitive to energy shifts. You're operating at a frequency where the Archons who normally stay hidden become visible to your awareness. For most people, this doesn't cause problems because their consciousness stays diffused during sleep. They're dreaming. They're processing subconscious material. They're not focused or aware enough for the Archons to do anything more than passively drain ambient energy. But chosen ones are different. Even in sleep, your consciousness maintains a level of coherence that most humans don't have. Your awareness doesn't fully dissolve into the dream state. Part of you stays alert, watching, sensing, and the Archons know this. They know that if they try to approach you during normal sleep, that alert part of your consciousness will detect them and trigger a defense response. So instead of approaching while you're asleep, they wait until the circadian trough when your body is in its deepest physical rest, and then they force a partial wake state. The 3 a.m. wake up isn't natural, it's induced. The Archon uses a frequency pulse, a targeted energetic disruption aimed at your solar plexus, or your heart center, and it jolts your consciousness back toward waking just enough that you become aware of your surroundings, but not enough that your rational mind comes fully online. You're in what sleep researchers call hypnopompia, the transition state between sleep and waking, and in that state your perception is wide open. You can sense things you wouldn't sense during full waking consciousness. You can feel presences in the room. You can perceive the oppressive weight of something nearby. And most significantly, you're flooded with fear. Not fear of something specific, just fear. Raw, primal, unexplained fear that has no obvious source. That fear isn't coming from you. It's being generated externally and broadcast directly into your energy field, because fear is the frequency the archons feed on most efficiently, and during the 3 a.m. window, they've created the perfect conditions for harvesting it. You're awake enough to feel and generate emotion, but you're too disoriented to recognize what's happening or defend yourself consciously. You lie there in the dark, heart racing, body tense, mind spinning with anxious thoughts, and the archon position near your bed or hovering above your chest is feeding. It's pulling the fear frequency out of your field as fast as you generate it, and the more you generate, the longer it stays. Some chosen ones report lying awake for 30 minutes, an hour, sometimes longer, unable to fall back asleep, unable to shake the feeling that something is terribly wrong. That's not insomnia, that's an active harvest session, and it continues until either the archon is satisfied and leaves, or the circadian rhythm shifts enough that your cortisol starts rising and your conscious mind begins to come back online, which naturally closes the access window. Jesus taught his inner circle why the archons chose this specific time, and the explanation is in the Gospel of Philip, in a section the church translated incorrectly on purpose. The text describes the rulers of the darkness and says they can only operate during the hours when the light of awareness is withdrawn. The church taught this as a metaphor for sin and ignorance, but the Gnostics knew it was literal instruction about time. The archons are bound by certain rules in this dimension. They can't manifest fully in material reality. They can't maintain a stable presence in the frequency range where human waking consciousness operates. They need low light, low awareness, low resistance, and the 3 a.m. window gives them all three. The physical environment is dark. The conscious mind is suppressed, and the energy body is in its most accessible state. It's not that they're stronger at 3 a.m. It's that you're less defended, and they've learned to exploit that gap with surgical precision. The reason this happens more frequently to chosen ones than to regular people is because chosen ones carry more energy. Your field is brighter, your frequency is higher. And to an archon, you're not just a food source. You're a premium food source. They're not going to waste the effort of forcing a wake state on someone whose energy field is dim and depleted. They're going to target the people who are actively raising their frequency, who are waking up spiritually, who are beginning to remember what they are. And the more you progress, the more aggressively they'll target you during the 3 a.m. window, because they're trying to drain off the excess energy you're generating during your waking hours. They're trying to keep you depleted, keep you fearful, keep you from stabilizing at the higher frequency that would make you untouchable. The first time most chosen ones become aware of the 3 a.m. pattern, they try to rationalize it. They tell themselves, it's stress, it's bad sleep hygiene, it's too much caffeine or not enough exercise or an overactive mind. And those things can contribute to disrupted sleep, but they don't explain the specificity. They don't explain why it's always around 3 a.m. They don't explain the fear that has no source. They don't explain the sensation of presence, the feeling of being watched, the oppressive weight on the chest that some people describe as sleep paralysis, but is actually something much more targeted. When you start tracking the pattern, when you start writing down what time you wake up and what you're feeling when it happens, you'll see the consistency. It's not random. It's not your body's natural rhythm. It's an external pattern. And once you recognize that, once you accept that something is deliberately waking you during this window, you can start to defend against it. But most people never get that far because the archons rely on you dismissing the experience, on you convincing yourself it's all in your head, on you staying confused and disoriented so they can keep accessing you night after night without resistance. Here's what you need to understand about the Archon harvest mechanism during the 3 a.m. window. And this is the part Jesus taught that was completely erased from mainstream Christianity. The archons don't just feed on your fear in the moment, they're conditioning you. Every time they force you awake, generate fear in your field, and harvest it, they're creating a feedback loop. Your subconscious mind begins to associate 3 a.m. with danger. It begins to anticipate the wake-up. It begins to generate the fear response even before the archon triggers it, because you've been trained over weeks or months or years to expect that something bad happens at that time. And once that conditioning is in place, the archon doesn't have to work as hard. It just has to show up. Your own subconscious does the rest. You wake up, you feel the fear, you generate the energy, and the archon feeds effortlessly. This is why some chosen ones report that even when they try to stay calm, even when they tell themselves nothing is wrong, the fear still comes. It's not a rational response. It's a conditioned response, and breaking that conditioning requires more than just willpower. It requires understanding what's happening, reclaiming your authority during that window, and actively closing the gate they've been using to access you. The Gnostic text called the hypostasis of the archons describes 7 archons who each govern a specific type of human vulnerability, and the one assigned to the 3 a.m. window is called the Watcher of the Threshold. Its function is to monitor chosen ones who are beginning to wake up spiritually and to intervene during the most vulnerable point in their daily cycle. It doesn't attack you during the day when your defenses are active. It doesn't approach you during early sleep when your consciousness is still somewhat alert. It waits for the trough, the moment when your guard is completely down, and then it strikes. And the strike isn't violent, it's subtle. It's a frequency insertion, a pulse of fear, a whisper of thoughts that don't belong to you, a sense of dread that seeps into your awareness and makes you feel like something terrible is about to happen, even though nothing in your physical environment has changed. The Watcher feeds on that dread, and the longer you stay in that state, the more it takes. Some chosen ones wake up after these sessions feeling completely drained, like they didn't sleep at all, like something sucked the life out of them during the night. That's because something did. The energy you generated during that fear state didn't just dissipate, it was harvested, and the archon that harvested it is stronger now while you're weaker. Jesus gave his inner circle a specific protocol for closing the 3 a.m. archon window, and it's preserved in fragments across several Gnostic texts that the church tried to destroy. The protocol has 3 parts, and all 3 must be done together for it to work. You can't just do one and expect the gate to close. This is a complete system, and the archons have spent centuries making sure you'd never find out about it. The first part is recognition. You have to consciously acknowledge that the 3 a.m. wake-up is not natural, that it's being caused by an external entity, and that you are being targeted. This sounds simple, but most people resist it because it forces them to accept that non-physical entities are real and that they're being attacked by something they can't see. But recognition is the foundation. As long as you're telling yourself it's just anxiety or bad sleep, you're giving the archon permission to continue. The moment you say out loud or in your mind, "I know what this is, I see you, I recognize that you are here and you are trying to harvest me," the dynamic shifts. The archon can no longer operate under the cover of your denial. You've pulled back the veil, and now it knows you're aware. That alone won't stop it, but it disrupts the harvest. It makes the process less efficient, and it prepares you for the second part of the protocol. The second part is declaration. Once you've recognized the presence, you have to declare your authority. The Gnostics called this speaking the name of the monad, and it works because it establishes your identity. You're not a helpless human lying in the dark hoping the fear will go away. You are a fragment of the monad, a piece of infinite consciousness temporarily inhabiting a material body, and the archon has no authority over you unless you give it. The declaration Jesus taught is this: "I am monad. I do not consent to your presence. You have no power here. Leave now. You say it out loud if you can, or you say it silently with absolute conviction if speaking will wake others in your home. But you don't ask, you don't beg, you don't plead, you state. This is a command, not a request, and the reason it works is because the Archon system is bound by consent. They can push, they can manipulate, they can create fear and confusion, but they cannot override a clear, conscious withdrawal of consent from a being who knows what they are. When you declare your monad identity and revoke consent, the Archon has to leave. Not because you banished it with spiritual power, but because the rules it operates under require consent, and you just removed it. Most chosen ones report that the presence lifts immediately, the oppressive weight disappears, the fear dissolves, the room feels lighter, and within minutes, they're able to fall back asleep without the anxious spiral that usually keeps them awake. The third part of the protocol is sealing, and this is the part that makes the closure permanent instead of temporary. After you've recognized the presence and declared your authority, you have to close the gate it used to access you. The 3 a.m. window exists because there's a gap in your energy field during the circadian trough, a temporary vulnerability that the archons exploit, but you can seal that gap. The technique Jesus taught is called the monad seal, and it's a visualization combined with intention. As you're lying in bed after you've spoken the declaration, you visualize a sphere of light forming around your entire body, not just surrounding you, but anchored into you. The light is coming from your heart center, expanding outward until it completely encloses your physical body and your energy field in a continuous, unbroken shell. And as you visualize this, you hold the intention that this sphere is monad frequency, the highest vibration, the light that the archons cannot penetrate. You don't have to maintain the visualization for long. 30 seconds is enough. What matters is the clarity of the intention. You're not hoping the seal works. You're not asking for protection. You're establishing a boundary, and that boundary is law in the energetic dimensions. Once the seal is in place, the Archon cannot re-enter. The gate is closed. And if you do this protocol correctly, you will not wake up at 3 a.m. anymore. Not because the Archon stopped trying, but because it can't access you. The window that was open is now sealed, and the harvest mechanism no longer functions. Most chosen ones who implement this 3-part protocol report that the 3 a.m. wake-up stop within 3 to 7 days. Some experience immediate results. The very first night they use recognition, declaration, and sealing, they sleep through until morning without disturbance. Others find that the wake-ups decrease in intensity and frequency over the first week until they stop completely. And a small percentage experience what's called the escalation response, where the Archon attacks become more aggressive for 2 or 3 nights before they stop entirely. This happens because the Archon is testing your resolve. It's trying to break through the seal by increasing the fear frequency, hoping you'll panic and drop your defenses. If this happens to you, you don't back down. You repeat the protocol every time you wake up. You recognize, you declare, you seal. And after a few nights, the Archon will give up and move on to a target that's easier to access. You will have closed the gate permanently, and the 3 a.m. window that's been draining you for months or years will no longer exist in your experience. Jesus revealed why you wake up at 3 a.m. in teachings that the church erased because they couldn't allow Christians to know that the demonic oppression they were praying for deliverance from could be stopped with 3 simple steps that didn't require a priest, didn't require a ritual, didn't require anything except your own conscious recognition of what you are. The 3 a.m. wake up is the Archon harvest window. It's a targeted exploitation of the circadian trough when your defenses are at their lowest and your energy field is most accessible. They force you awake, generate fear, and feed on the frequency you produce, and they've been doing it to you night after night because you didn't know what was happening. But now you know. You know it's not insomnia. You know it's not anxiety. You know it's a deliberate harvest protocol, and you know exactly how to stop it. Tonight, when you go to sleep, you're prepared. If you wake up at 3 a.m., you're not going to lie there in fear wondering what's wrong. You're going to recognize the presence. You're going to declare your monad identity and revoke consent. And you're going to seal the gate with the light of the monad so the Archon can never access you through that window again. Not because I told you this works, but because Jesus taught this to the chosen ones 2,000 years ago, and it's been suppressed ever since because it makes you untouchable. The harvest ends tonight. The Archon window closes, and you sleep in sovereignty. If you're closing the 3 a.m. Archon window tonight, do 3 things right now. First, comment "The Archons cannot touch me" below and commit to using the 3-part protocol starting tonight. Second, subscribe to Divine Codes because the advanced Archon defense techniques and the complete monad seal system are coming in the next teachings. Third, like this video so other chosen ones who are waking up at 3 a.m. discover why it's happening and how to stop it before the Archons suppress this teaching again. Do all 3 now. Then tonight before you sleep, repeat this once out loud or in your mind. I am monad. I do not consent to the 3 a.m. harvest. My gate is sealed. And if you wake up at 3 a.m., you know exactly what to do. Recognize, declare, seal. The Archon will leave. The fear will dissolve. And by tomorrow morning, you'll wake up fully rested for the first time in months because you'll have slept through the harvest window that no longer has access to you. The gate is closed. You are sovereign. And the Archons fear the chosen ones who know how to seal the 3 a.m. window more than anything, because it means their easiest and most reliable feeding mechanism is gone. You're untouchable now.